At 6:42 a.m., your phone buzzes, not with a message, not with a call, but with a stark government alert flashing on the screen in bold letters. This is not a drill. In that instant, the world you knew, the rhythm of your life, the comfort of routine, the illusion of safety fractures. No explosions, no soldiers on the streets, yet the city feels smaller, tighter, suffocating with silence. Panic spreads faster than any missile could, infecting social feeds, filling every mind with questions that have no answers. Airports and train stations grind to a halt as rumors of multiple fronts ignite a global frenzy. Banks report frozen transactions, fuel stations run dry, and grocery aisles empty in hours. By the first hour, millions of people are already making decisions that will define their survival, evacuating neighborhoods, huddling in basements, or staring at the sky, unsure if it will ever be safe again. As night falls on the first day, cities transform into unfamiliar landscapes, lights flicker, elevators fail, and streets once full of life become eerily quiet. Save for the occasional emergency vehicle or the distant hum of military drones, social trust crumbles, neighbors grow wary, friends become strangers, strangers become threats. By hour 36, the word nuclear dominates headlines, though confirmation is scarce, and people frantically search for fallout maps, bunkers, and survival tips online. Governments deny, avoid, and refuse to answer, heightening fear and confusion, while those who can flee do so, creating choked highways and deserted urban centers. Looting, armed civilians, and impromptu militias appear in pockets, testing the fragile threads of society, and emergency services prioritize only the most critical areas. Amidst this chaos, ordinary humans grapple with extraordinary circumstances. Parents shielding children, strangers offering or withholding help, and millions realizing that modern cities, marvels of human progress, are surprisingly fragile in the face of total war. Over the next 2 days, food and water become scarce, power grids fluctuate, hospitals strain to accommodate both real and imagined casualties, and social media becomes a battlefield of misinformation, rumors, and panic, each viral post accelerating the collapse of normalcy. By the end of the first 48 hours, civilization does not yet lie in ruins, but it stands teetering, stretched thin, fragile, and tense. A modern city transformed from a symbol of progress into a testing ground for human fear, resilience, and the instinct to survive, as the full scope of World War III begins to reveal itself. World War III doesn't start with bombs. It begins silently, invisibly, through the veins of information flowing across the globe. A sudden stillness in a world addicted to speed and connection. Stock markets freeze mid-trade, numbers flickering on screens before vanishing into blank uncertainty, while airports stand motionless, planes grounded, runways empty under foggy skies. GPS signals falter, causing a ripple of confusion across cities large and small, while the internet slows, then dies, plunging entire networks into silence, leaving billions staring at blank screens, realizing that the world has shifted in an instant. In major cities around the world, from the towering skyscrapers of New York to the historic streets of London, from the bustling markets of Karachi to the frozen avenues of Moscow, and the sprawling megacities of Beijing, people stop scrolling, pause mid-step, and begin to listen, attuned to the faintest hints of change in the air, a silence heavy with anticipation. Governments issue statements, vague yet chilling, confirming that multiple nations are involved, that multiple fronts are emerging simultaneously, and that this is not a regional skirmish but a truly global event, affecting every corner of the planet. Within minutes, subtle panic spreads. Grocery stores fill as citizens seek to secure supplies. ATMs go offline, leaving long lines of anxious, silent faces. Fuel stations run dry as vehicles idle and engines cool, and yet the cities, those still standing, begin to show the first cracks, streets quiet, intersections empty, traffic lights glowing over silent asphalt, reflections of towering buildings fractured and distorted, as if the very air vibrates with the tension of uncertainty. Every digital screen, every communication line, every human gesture is amplified, signaling a profound shift in the rhythm of life. as if the entire world has collectively inhaled and is holding its breath, teetering on the edge of a new reality, one defined not by explosions, but by disruption, by the sudden, palpable awareness that everything familiar is fragile, interconnected, and suspended on the brink of collapse. And as the hours stretch, the invisible threads of society, the flow of information, commerce, and movement begin to strain, revealing how delicate the structures of our global civilization truly are. While across continents, cities that never sleep now pause, listen, and brace for a future that is uncertain, unpredictable, and undeniably global. Panic is contagious, spreading faster than anyone could imagine, more infectious than any virus in history, as if fear itself has taken on a life of its own, seeping into every crowded street, every office, every home, with people frozen mid-step, staring at the glowing screens of their phones, eyes wide and hearts racing, unsure of what is real and what is fabricated, as social media becomes a virtual battlefield, where old clips resurface and distorted videos are shared, headlines blur together, and misinformation spreads like wildfire across digital networks. While cities feel a strange tension, parents clutching their children, dragging them away from schools, worried eyes scanning for danger, offices abruptly emptied midday as employees file out, laptops and briefcases in hand, leaving behind screens flashing alert messages, hospitals quietly preparing, stretchers lined up, staff checking equipment, masks and gloves ready. The anticipation of disaster palpable even though no missile has landed, and police stations flooded with thousands of calls, the questions echoing through phone lines over and over: should we evacuate? Is my city a target? Are nuclear weapons involved? With no clear answers, only rising anxiety reflected in every face and every conversation, as the truth remains elusive, buried beneath layers of speculation, rumors, and speculation, leaving people grasping at fragments of information, desperate for clarity, yet finding none. Every glance at a newsfeed or social media post amplifying the tension, creating a city-wide, almost tangible atmosphere of uncertainty, where the world seems to pause, time slows down, and every ordinary moment is overshadowed by the fear of the unknown, as communities, governments, and individuals all struggle to navigate this new reality of hyper-connected anxiety, where emotional contagion spreads faster than facts, where every notification carries the weight of potential catastrophe, and the collective human psyche teeters on the edge, suspended between rational thought and primal fear, leaving behind a haunting silence in the streets, an invisible storm of doubt and apprehension that fills the air, the night, and the mind. As the unsettling truth sinks in, no one has answers, no one truly knows what will happen next, and the world watches, breath held, as panic goes viral. As night slowly descends upon the sprawling city, a sense of unfamiliarity settles over every street and skyscraper, transforming what was once familiar into something alien and unpredictable. As shadows stretch across glass towers, and the moon casts a cold, reflective glow on deserted avenues, streetlights flicker to life one by one, casting pools of muted golden light onto roads where not a single person walks, where abandoned vehicles rest silently, and where an eerie stillness blankets entire neighborhoods, intensifying the feeling that the world has shifted in an instant. Across key points of the city, unmarked security vehicles quietly position themselves at intersections, near transportation hubs, energy centers, and administrative buildings, creating a tense and watchful presence that hints at an unnamed crisis gripping the metropolis. Curfew announcements flicker across digital screens and public speakers, urging citizens to remain indoors, though enforcement is subtle and indirect, leaving the city in a state of uneasy compliance. And the knowledge that something deeply unsettling is underway begins to seep into the minds of those observing from dimly lit apartments, peering cautiously through windows as the reality dawns that modern urban centers are fragile constructs, ill-equipped to endure sudden disruption or catastrophe. Elevators halt mid-flight, leaving people suspended in darkness, while water barely trickles from taps in once reliable plumbing systems, and mobile networks strain under unexpected overload. the hum of technology now faltering as digital communications falter. The first signs of digital interference ripple across control rooms and citywide monitoring systems, with screens flashing, warning messages, networks flickering, and the power grid stuttering in erratic patterns, leaving entire districts plunged into darkness and silence, broken only by the occasional distant hum of emergency generators or the echo of sirens slicing through the night. In this growing darkness, fear no longer whispers, it resonates, amplifying with every shadowed alley, every abandoned vehicle, every powerless streetlight, until it becomes a tangible presence, enveloping the city in suspense and uncertainty, as citizens, confined within their homes, confront the fragility of the world they once took for granted, and the city itself, once a beacon of life and order, transforms into a cinematic landscape of tension, suspense, and quiet dread, where every flickering light, every empty street, every malfunctioning system contributes to the pervasive feeling that the night is alive with an unseen, omnipresent tension, and that survival within this unfamiliar cityscape requires patience, awareness, and resilience. As the hours stretch on, shadows deepen, and the city silently waits for the dawn that may never bring comfort, only a continuation of the uncertainty that now defines its streets and the lives within them. Somewhere in the world, a single streak of light rises into the clouds, marking the first missile launch, a moment that feels distant yet immediate, quiet yet profound. It is not nuclear, not yet, but the shadow of what could be hangs over the horizon, a reminder of the fragility of peace and the weight of global responsibility. The world watches silently, knowing that a single action, even symbolic, carries echoes that ripple across continents, touching every life in ways unseen. News channels report events in another country, images flickering across screens, yet the impact is felt not physically, but emotionally, as people everywhere recognize the truth. If it can happen there, it can happen here. Cities quietly prepare shelters, officials coordinate, emergency systems hum in readiness. But for most, the paths and places remain unknown, uncertain, hidden beneath layers of protocol and secrecy. The uncertainty itself becomes the heaviest weapon, shaping thoughts, decisions, and fears as families, leaders, and individuals all grapple with the invisible tension that has now settled over the world. Faces illuminated by screens reflect worry, conversations linger on what-ifs, and the air is thick with contemplation, with the knowledge that nothing is guaranteed, and yet life continues, uneasy and alert. Every second stretches longer than it should, the world suspended in a liminal space between action and restraint, between anticipation and dread, between what is seen and what is imagined. Each moment carries weight, each pause is a silent warning, each glance at a newsfeed or a map, each quiet conversation in a cafe or a living room becomes a meditation on fragility, on possibility, on survival. The skies may remain calm, the streets may remain busy, yet the tension is palpable, a quiet drumbeat of uncertainty that pulses through cities and nations alike. And so, humanity watches, waits, and contemplates, caught in the invisible grip of an event that has begun somewhere far away, but now resonates everywhere, a reminder of how small we are, how connected we are, and how fragile the balance truly is, as the world holds its breath in the shadow of what has begun, in the silent understanding of what may come, and in the heavy, inescapable presence of uncertainty itself. Day 2 begins in a city that feels unrecognizable, a place where the rhythms of daily life have evaporated overnight. There is no work, no school, no ordinary routines to anchor the people who now wander streets and empty offices alike, the silence stretching across highways and alleyways, interrupted only by the occasional flicker of a warning screen or the distant hum of stalled machinery. And everywhere, a quiet tension hangs in the air, a sense that the world has shifted irreversibly. Food deliveries are sparse, ration lines stretch with patience fraying, neighbors look to one another with cautious calculation, some offering support, sharing what little they have, creating fragile pockets of cooperation, while others retreat behind doors and barriers, letting fear and uncertainty dictate their movements, and slowly, trust begins to dissolve. Police presence is inconsistent. Emergency lines are overwhelmed, prioritizing officials over the public, leaving the ordinary citizen to navigate this fractured society largely alone. While once familiar faces begin to appear strange, the intimacy of friendship giving way to suspicion, and even strangers are seen as potential threats in a landscape where every interaction carries risk. Buildings remain, but they no longer feel safe. Commerce continues only in sporadic flashes. Streets are silent yet charged with energy, the city itself a living portrait of tension. And everywhere, people are forced to confront the subtle, invisible destruction that war brings, not just the collapse of infrastructure, but the slow erosion of behavior, of empathy, of connection. As neighbors watch one another cautiously, families huddle behind shuttered windows, and a pervasive anxiety settles over communities, teaching the hard lesson that war does not only demolish walls and glass, but also the very patterns of human life, reshaping how people interact, how they think, how they survive, creating a world where every decision is colored by fear, every glance carries the weight of doubt, and every day stretches endlessly as a test of endurance, morality, and the fragile bonds that once held society together. By hour 36, the word nuclear is everywhere, echoing across screens, billboards, and social media feeds, a constant reminder that something enormous is unfolding, a force beyond control, beyond certainty, and beyond prediction. Governments respond first with denial, then with avoidance, and finally with silence, their voices measured, cautious, and distant, leaving the public in a state of unease, searching desperately for answers they may never receive. People turn to their devices, their fingers hovering over keyboards as they search for survival tips, maps of fallout zones, locations of safe shelters, instructions to protect themselves and those they love. Each query a reflection of rising anxiety and the instinct to survive, amplified by the flickering glow of digital screens and the silent hum of the city around them. Some leave the cities, joining streams of cars and pedestrians moving toward uncertain horizons, highways clogged with a mass of humanity, fuel stations running dry, and every street a reminder of the fragile infrastructure on which modern life depends, a fragile web now stretched to its breaking point. Once vibrant cities, symbols of progress, innovation, and human achievement, feel suddenly like traps, their towering buildings and illuminated skylines casting shadows of isolation, their streets empty yet full of invisible tension, and every corner echoing the unspoken fear of what might come next. And everywhere, in every heart, in every mind, there is the anticipation of one sound, the sound that will change everything, a sound that could mark an end or a beginning, a sound whose meaning no one can yet comprehend, but whose impact is already felt in the tremor of the air, the pause in conversation, the stillness of those who wait, watching, listening, hoping, fearing, as the world holds its breath, and every moment stretches into eternity, every glance toward the horizon filled with the possibility of revelation, collapse, or transformation, leaving humanity suspended between the ordinary and the unimaginable, in a tense, fragile liminality, where every decision, every movement, and every thought seems weightier, and the clock ticks steadily toward the unknown future. If World War III were to start tomorrow, it would not begin with thunderous explosions or the immediate roar of missiles, but with the subtle unraveling of everything we take for granted, a quiet apocalypse that creeps into homes, streets, and minds before armies ever march. Most people would not die from blasts or fire, but from the insidious spread of panic, the creeping confusion that clouds judgment, and the terrifying realization that nothing has prepared them for the world they suddenly face. In the first hours, phones would buzz with urgent alerts, glowing red with warnings no one fully understands. Social media would erupt in conflicting messages and misinformation, and people would begin to question what is real and what is orchestrated, feeling the walls of their familiar reality bending under invisible pressure. Supermarkets would empty within minutes, ATMs would run dry, hospitals would overflow not with wounded soldiers, but with civilians overwhelmed by anxiety, and streets that once hummed with routine life would become mazes of uncertainty, abandoned vehicles, and shadows of fleeing neighbors, each person unsure whether to trust the other. Civilizations would reveal their brittle bones. The infrastructure that seemed so permanent, the elevators, the bridges, the power grids, the transportation systems would falter, not from bombs, but from sheer human unpreparedness. And in that faltering, cities would look more like fragile constructions of glass and paper than the solid fortresses people imagined. Families would huddle in dimly lit apartments, relying on flickering candles and radios, drawing maps of escape routes in notebooks, while outside, streets fill with aimless wanderers, searching for supplies, for guidance, for someone to tell them they are safe. And in that chaos, civilians, not generals, not soldiers, become the central figures of the unfolding crisis, learning in real time that the rules of survival are not written anywhere, and that panic can travel faster than any missile. The first 48 hours are a lesson in human vulnerability, in how quickly order unravels, how fast fear spreads, and how thin the veneer of modern civilization really is. Governments may issue statements, emergency services may attempt to respond, but the sheer scale of simultaneous global uncertainty means that most people are left alone with their fear, their confusion, and the haunting knowledge that there is no immediate rescue. And when those 48 hours finally pass, the world has changed irreversibly. Streets are scarred, neighborhoods are fractured, trust between humans has eroded, and the comforting rhythm of normal life, the commuting, the markets, the routines, has been replaced by improvisation, vigilance, and an acute awareness of fragility. This is not a movie with a scripted ending, a neatly tied resolution, or heroes arriving at the last minute. This is the beginning of a new reality, a modern war that is defined not by front lines and uniforms but by the unraveling of everyday life, the subtle shifts of power in empty streets, and the sudden, palpable tension that hovers over every human decision. And in this new reality, the most terrifying lesson is that no amount of preparation can entirely shield anyone from the mental, emotional, and societal tremors that ripple through the first 48 hours. Humans will face scarcity, uncertainty, and the haunting weight of knowing that once the initial chaos subsides, there is no going back, and no illusion of safety remains. Civilization is not indestructible. It is fragile, reactive, and, under pressure, astonishingly human. And so, as dawn breaks over smoldering cityscapes, flickering lights, and streets filled with scattered debris and cautious survivors, we realize that modern war does not announce itself with fanfare or spectacle. It begins quietly, invisibly, and reaches its apex in the hearts and minds of civilians, who awaken to a world where the rules have changed, where society's scaffolding can no longer be trusted, and where the ordinary everyday life they once knew exists only as a memory. And in that realization, the true horror of the first 48 hours settles in, that in the blink of a day or two, life as we know it can crumble, leaving humans to navigate the void with nothing but fear, resilience, and the stark awareness that the world they depended on has shifted forever. This is not fiction. This is the blueprint of how modern war begins silent, psychological, civic, and merciless in its subtlety, a shadow over cities, families, and minds that transforms ordinary life into a profound test of survival, endurance, and human spirit.